Geoff, as the leader of evangelicals worldwide, you're here in Geneva on this special day. How special is this to you?
Well, I think it's obviously a very historic day. We know of no other time in history when three world church bodies have come together. And I think it's a real privilege for us as the World Evangelical Alliance to be a partner in this process. And so it is a historic moment in the history of the church. And so I think we don't want to lose sight of that.
But historically, the last 100 years, evangelicals haven't been known to partner on the global scene with the other church bodies. Was this a new initiative? Were we invited in? How did this come about?
We were actually invited into the process. I think there was a recognition that if there's a need for the voice of evangelicals into this process, and the other bodies, the Vatican and the World Council, saw WA as the prime group that they should be working with to get the voice of evangelicals in the world. And so, yes, we were invited in the process as one of the three world church bodies.
And why do you think we were invited?
Because there's really, in some ways, no one else that represents the breadth of the constituency of evangelicals like the WA. And realizing that as you look at the world, and look at the world of evangelism, for instance, evangelicals have been known to be very proactive in evangelism. And if you're dealing with a code of practice around evangelism, not to have evangelicals there seemed a little strange. And so the fact that at the first meeting when evangelicals were not there, they realized that and they said, we need evangelicals at this to be participating with us because they're at the heart of evangelism in the world.
Did you feel comfortable as Secretary General to be a part of those conversations?
I felt absolutely comfortable, but first of all, because of the team of people that we put together who have strong, first of all, evangelical credentials and then academic credentials, people from around the world that understand the key issues of mission, theology, and religious liberty. So I felt very comfortable in the team that we put together, that we assembled, that could actively participate in the conversation and help shape the conversation that was taking place.
So you don't feel co-opted by these other religious bodies?
No, I think we played a significant part in the shape of the document, and that actually, I think it would have looked very different if we weren't there. And so the fact that we were there as evangelicals made a profound difference on the shape and the tone and the content of the document.
What use will this be to church leaders around the world?
Well, I hope that because of world bodies that have accepted this document, that this will work its way down into very different contexts. And so that leaders in different countries, perhaps where there are religious liberty issues, this will be a place for conversation and bringing people together of these various groups to also interact with other faith communities. I think as I've talked to leaders in other religious communities, non-Christian religions, they've been asking for something like this in terms of, how do we stand on the areas of proselytism and conversion? Well, we're saying here are some standards, here's some agreements that we've come together as the broadest representation of the global church ever to come around this. And so we can hold it up and say, this is what we believe together should be the standards. Of course, we're not going to be able to police this when that's not our intent, but to hold it up as a best practice and call our community to engage around these principles.
Did this in part come about because some other Christian communities would feel that evangelicals have been evangelizing their own members and they've wondered why this happens?
Yes, that was partly it, in terms of the relationships within the Christian families. That was, how we relate to each other within the Christian church. But for me, there was a meeting I was in, a private meeting with a leader from a Muslim country. And he turned to me and he said, in this private meeting, I want you to call for a moratorium on evangelism and mission in the Islamic world. And I said, Your Highness, I can't do that. I said, because for us, we're equal opportunity good news people. We think it's one of the pillars of our faith. Good news is for everyone. And then he turned to me and said, well, you target the poor and the vulnerable. You manipulate people. And I said, well, another pillar of our faith is caring for the poor and the vulnerable. Sometimes how we put those two together is problematic. And so the fact that we've now established this framework for how we engage with people within the Christian families, but also broader, will help us in terms of how we're perceived with other religious groups.
I remember going to a mission on Yonge Street in Toronto, and at one point those who came in for food would only get their food after they had gone to chapel. Is this the kind of thing you're talking about, but only on a contemporary scale?
Perhaps it is. You know, again, it's how we're viewed, how we put our engagement in engaging in social responsibilities and caring for the poor and the vulnerable, that we don't manipulate them, and but also we want to be the freedom to share our faith without feeling like people have to believe a certain way to receive some benefit from it.
So where is evangelism and mission in the evangelical world today, and what do you see coming in the future years?
Well, you know, I think there is rising hope, I would say, in some parts of the world. And I would say places like Asia, Africa, America, Latin America, the evangelical community is on the rise. They're engaging holistically in their country. They're committed to the holistic nature of the gospel and evangelism. Churches are growing. I think we face some challenges in Europe and North America, but I think there is this sense that evangelicalism and the commitment to evangelism is growing within the world. Changing how we engage in it is also changing, but you know, so I think there is a hope that we see in terms of sharing our faith in many different contexts. I think the challenge for evangelism is in some parts of the world where Christians are a very small minority. How do you engage in evangelism in restricted contexts? And then how do we engage in evangelism in the secularized world like Europe, where the church is a periphery of society? So how we engage in these contexts it continues to be a challenge for us, but I'm hopeful.
The Evangelical Alliance, which you serve as world leader, will it be served? Will it be contained by this document? Which?
No, it's for us, it's actually going to free us to engage much more broadly, because what we're doing, we're upholding standards and saying we are committed to mission. Mission is at the heart of the church, and so everything we could in some ways want is included in the document. It's not restricting us all. It focuses on religious liberty, the freedom for people to believe, change their belief without fear. And it also reflects the heart of Jesus and the style of Jesus in how we engage with people in a winsome, positive way. So it's actually going to be a great tool. And I've already spoken to government leaders who have been applauded us for taking this step because they feel it's going to help in engaging in religious liberty issues in the broadest sense. So I'm very excited about the launch of this document.
How did evangelicals come to be players on the world stage?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. I think as we look back on, say, the last century, for many evangelicals, they sidelined themselves. They decided not to engage in the public square. They decided that their place was primarily just spiritual and not to engage in the breadth of society. But I think there's been a tremendous change, and I think a lot of the influence of that has come out of the global South, where on a daily basis they're dealing with the issues of poverty and injustice and all these kind of issues, and realizing that there is a biblical mandate to engage. And as evangelicals have dramatically grown, the fastest growing community of faith within the Christian families, and there was, I think, this growing recognition that as evangelicals that we needed to engage, and really because the WA is really the only global representative body of evangelicals. It was obvious to others outside of evangelicals that we were the place to connect with, and we're willing to do so. That we're not separatists, but we want to be good partners in engaging in the very significant issues that we face in our world today. And the reality is, we know that religion plays a significant role in so many societies. Where 25, 30 years ago, religion was seen to be being pushed to the side. Now it's at center stage. And so the question is, how do we engage with this group of evangelicals which are growing around the world? And so in some ways we've been handed this platform to engage in, and we're trying to rise to that challenge of representing evangelicals in a positive way that represents the good news of the gospel. Thank you.